ॐ वक्रतुण्डमहाकाय सूर्यकोटिसमप्रभ निर्विघ्नं कुरु मे देव सर्वकार्येषु सर्वदा। सरस्वती नमस्तुभ्यं वरदे कामरूपिणी विद्यारम्भं करिष्यामि सिद्धिर्भवतु मे सदा। गुरवे सर्वलोकानां विषये भवरोगिणां विधये सर्वविद्यानां दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। सदाशिवसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुः साक्षात् परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधेतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। हरिः ॐ। ब्रह्माश्रया सत्त्वरजस्तमो गुणात्मिका माया अस्ति। You can repeat.
ब्रह्माश्रया सत्त्वरजस्तमो गुणात्मिका माया अस्ति।
ततः आकाशः सम्भूतः आकाशात् वायुः वायोस्तेजः तेजस आपः अद्यः पृथिवी।
ततः आकाशः सम्भूतः
आकाशात् वायुः वायोस्तेजः
तेजस
आपः अद्यः पृथिवी।
एतेषां पञ्चतत्त्वानां मध्ये आकाशस्य सात्विकांशात् श्रोत्रेन्द्रियं सम्भूतम्।
एतेषां पञ्चतत्त्वानां मध्ये आकाशस्य सात्विकांशात् श्रोत्रेन्द्रियं सम्भूतम्।
सात्विकांशात् श्रोत्रेन्द्रियं सम्भूतम्।
It is Shrotrendriyam. It's a mistake. Shrotrendriyam.
श्रोत्रेन्द्रियं सम्भूतम्।
वायोः सात्विकांशात् त्वगिन्द्रियं सम्भूतम्।
वायोः सात्विकांशात् वागिन्द्रियं सम्भूतम्।
You can replace Vagindriyam by Tvagindriyam. Tvagindriyam Sambhutam.
वायोः
अग्नेः सात्विकांशात् चक्षुरिन्द्रियं सम्भूतम्।
अग्नेः सात्विकांशात् चक्षुरिन्द्रियं सम्भूतम्।
जलस्य सात्विकांशात् रसनेन्द्रियं सम्भूतम्।
जलस्य सात्विकांशात् रसनेन्द्रियं सम्भूतम्।
पृथिव्याः सात्विकांशात् घ्राणेन्द्रियं सम्भूतम्।
पृथिव्याः सात्विकांशात् घ्राणेन्द्रियं सम्भूतम्।
एतेषां पञ्चतत्त्वानां समष्टिसात्विकांशात् मनोबुद्धि अहङ्कारचित्त अन्तःकरणानि सम्भूतानि।
एतेषां पञ्चतत्त्वानां समष्टि सात्विकांशात् मनोबुद्धि अहङ्कार चित्त अन्तः करणानि सम्भूतानि
संकल्प विकल्पात्मकं मनः निश्चयात्मिका बुद्धिः अहङ्कर्ता अहङ्कारः चिन्तनकर्तृचित्तम्
संकल्पविकल्पात्मकं मनः निश्चयात्मिका बुद्धिः
अहङ्कारः
अहङ्कारः चिन्तनकर्तृचित्तम्
मनसो देवता चन्द्रमाः बुद्धेर्ब्रह्मा अहङ्कारस्य रुद्रः चित्तस्य वासुदेवः
मनसो
देवता चन्द्रमाः बुद्धिर्ब्रह्मा अहङ्कारस्य रुद्रः
चित्तस्य
वासुदेवः
एतेषां पञ्चतत्त्वानां मध्ये आकाशस्य राजसांशात् वागीन्द्रियं सम्भूतम्
एतेषां पञ्चतत्त्वानां मध्ये आकाशस्य
राजसांशात् वागीन्द्रियं सम्भूतम्
वायोः राजसांशात् पाणीन्द्रियं सम्भूतम्
वायोः राजसंशात् पाणीन्द्रियं सम्भूतम्
वह्नेः राजसांशात् पादेन्द्रियं सम्भूतम्
वह्नेः राजसांशात् पादेन्द्रियं सम्भूतम्
जलस्य राजसांशात् उपस्थेन्द्रियं सम्भूतम्
जलस्य राजसांशात् उपस्थेन्द्रियं सम्भूतम्
पृथिव्याः राजसांशात् इन्द्रियं सम्भूतम्
पृथिव्याः राजसांशात् उदेन्द्रियं सम्भूतम्
एतेषां समष्टिराजसांशात् पञ्चप्राणाः सम्भूताः
एतेषां समष्टिराजात् राजसांशात् पञ्चप्राणाः सम्भूताः
एतेषां पञ्चतत्त्वानां तामसांशात् पञ्चीकृत पञ्चतत्त्वानि भवन्ति
एतेषां पञ्चतत्त्वानां तामसांशात् पञ्चतत्त्वानि भवन्ति.
Up to this, we saw in the previous class. Now we will see the next topic, Panchikrata. Before that, we will have a quick recap of what we saw. So far we have seen under Sukshma Bhautika Srishti, we have seen that from the Sattva Guna of each Bhuta, each element, each sense organ was born. And Sattva Guna of all the 5 elements put together, they form Antakaranam. Samashti Rajasamshat Antakaranam Sambhutani. This is from the Sattva Amsha of all the elements. From the Rajo Amsha of Panchabhutas, Panchakarmendriyani are born. Vagindriyam, Vagindriyam, Padindriyam, Padindriyam, Pastendriyam, and Budendriyam. We saw. And from the total Rajo Amsha of Panchabhuta, Prana is born. That is from Samashti Rajasamshat, from Samashti Rajoguna, Prana is born. From Drishti Rajoguna, sense organ of action was born. From Jeshti Rajoguna, sense organ, from Samashti Rajoguna, Prana was born. So, all the 19 components of Sukshma Shariram, that is Pancha Jnanendriyani, Pancha Karmendriyani, पंच प्राणादयः मनः बुद्धिः ahankara chittam, they are all created now. So sukshma shariram is created. Now after sukshma srishti we have to study stula srishti. Sattva amsha and rajo amsha. Amsha means, I hope you understand, amsha is aspect or the part or the portion. Sattva amsha and rajo amsha of 5 elements, they have contributed in creating sukshma srishti. In sukshma srishti. Now tamo amsha will contribute for stula srishti. The tamo amsha of the pancha mahabhuta, they will undergo grossification process, and that process is called panchikaranam. Panchikaranam, grossification or compounding of elements. And what is panchikaranam? That is what are going to be our discussion. Panchikaranam. So you can repeat after me the next sentence. Panchikaranam. I will read, you can repeat. Panchikaranam katam iti chet. You can unmute your mic.
Panchikaranam katamiti chet.
Etesham panchamahabhutanam tamasam ekam ekam bhutam dvidha vibhajya.
Etesham panchamahabhutanam tamasam swarupam ekam bhutam vibhajya.
Ekam ekam artham pratak tushnim vyavasthapya.
Ekam ekamartham
पृथक् तूष्णीं
vyavasthapya.
Aparam ardham chaturdha vibhajya.
अपरम्
ardham
चतुर्धा
vibhajya.
Swardham bindeshu ardheshu.
Swardham vinneshu ardheshu.
Swabhaga chatushtaya sanyojanam karyam.
Swabhaga satushtaya samyojanam karyam.
Tada panchikaranam bhavati.
तदा पञ्चीकरणं भवति.
So this is the panchikaranam process described. You will see the meaning of each word. Now we'll explain in simple words what is panchikaranam. How does panchikaranam takes place? First, each of the tamo amsha, tamas aspect of the 5 elements, it gets divided into two parts, 2 portions. This is the first step. Then one part, that is 1/2 of each element, is kept aside. It is kept as it is, and the other half of each element is divided into 4. Listen carefully. It's divided into 4. Then the 1/4 of each element of the other half, that is which has been divided into 4, that one, the part 1/4 of each element, it mixes with the other half of the other elements. The first step is the division of the tamo amsha of each element into 2. That is the first step. The second step is the first half is kept aside, it's kept intact, and the second half is further divided into 4 parts. Remember, this is for each element. And each of the five elements, is divided into two, and one half of each element is divided into four. It means 1/8. It means 1/8. The second half is divided into 1/8. That is the second step. The third step is the 1/8 of each other element. It joins with the half of the given element and make it complete. It means the other half remains half. And now each element will have half of its own and 1/8 of the other four elements. This is what Panchikaranam. This is how Panchikaranam happens. I will explain this by simple chart. You will understand. For example, Akasha is there. Akasha is divided into two parts, two portions. First half and the second half. The first half of Akasha, it remains as it is. That is, first half, 50% of Akasha remains as it is, and the other 50% of Akasha, that is going to be divided into four. You will see that. So this getting divided into two is the first step. Vidha vibhajya. This is for Akasha. The same way for Vayu. Vayu also gets divided into two. 50% Vayu, and you can see on the left side and the right side. Similarly for Agni. Agni is also divided into two parts. Apaha also divided into two parts. Then Prithvi also. So this is the first step. The first step is each element is divided into two. The first part is kept as it is, and the second part now will be divided into four parts. For example, you can see the Akasha, that 50% Akasha, that is one half of the Akasha. Now it's divided into four parts. Four parts means what? Each will be 1/8, that is 12.5%. 12.5%. Akasha is divided into four parts. Each part is 12.5% Akasha. 1/8. 1/8. This is Chaturdha Vibhajya. Similarly, Vayu also gets divided into four parts. So you will have 12.5% Vayus will be there. The same for Agni also. And for Apaha and for Prithvi. So Akasha will have one half of Akasha and plus now it is divided into four. After this, what will happen is that 1/8 of each Akasha, the 12.5% what you saw, that will be given to each of the other four elements. That will be given to each of the other four elements. 1 minute. Sorry. So that 50%, that one half of Akasha will remain as it is, and that 1/8 of each Akasha will be given to each of the other element. Vayu will get 1/8 portion of Akasha, and Agni will get 1/8 portion of Akasha. Apaha will get 1/8 portion of Akasha, that is 12.5%, and Prithvi also will get 1.1/8 of each element, that is 12.5%. And Akasha also will get. Therefore, the Akasha now, it will have the 50%, that is half percent of Akasha, one half of Akasha, which has been kept aside as it is, that will be there. And it will have 1/8 of the other elements contributed. That is 12.5% of Vayu, 12.5% of Agni, 12.5% of Apa, and 12.5% of Prithvi. So, therefore, now Stula Akasha is formed. Now the Stula Akasha, it is a mixture of all the 5 elements. That is, the Stula Akasha will have 50% Akasha, that is 1/2, and 1/8 of each of the other elements. 12.5% of Vayu, 12.5% of Agni, 12.5% of Apaha, and 12.5% of Prithvi. This process is called grossification, Panchikaranam. By the process of Panchikaranam, Stula Akasha is formed. And the same thing is repeated for the other elements. So Stula Akasha, you can see now. Stula Akasha, you are seeing now. Now, this Stula Vayu. Stula Vayu will have 50% Vayu and 12.5% Akasha and 12.5% Agni, 12.5% Apaha, and 12.5% Prithvi. This is Stula Vayu. This is how Stula Vayu is born from Sukshma, that is Sukshma, Tanmatras. So once each element has the contribution of other elements, then it becomes grossified. It becomes Stula. That is why it is called Stula. From Sukshma, now Stula is formed. From Sukshma Akasha, Stula Akasha is formed. From Sukshma Akasha means not only Sukshma Akasha, it has a contribution from the other elements also. So Stula Vayu is formed. Then Sukshma Agni. Sukshma Agni, it will have 50% Agni and 12.5% Akasha, 12.5% Vayu, and 12.5% Apaha, and 12.5% Prithvi. Stula Agni. Stula Agni is the Agni what we see by our eyes. Agni has got shape and form. It is because it is Stula. Then Stula Apa. Stula Apa is the gross water, the water which is available for the taste. It has 50% Apaha, 50% that Sukshma, that's Tanmatra Apaha, and 12.5% of Akasha, 12.5% of Vayu, 12.5% of Agni, and 12.5% of Prithvi. It has the contribution of 1/8 of all the other 4 elements. Each element will have the contribution of the 1/8 of the other 4 elements. Then Stula Prithvi. Stula Prithvi will have 50% Prithvi, earth element, that is the Sukshma Prithvi, and 12.5% of Akasha, and 12.5% of Sukshma Vayu, 12.5% of Sukshma Apa, and 12.5% of Sukshma Agni. When the combination takes place, the combination of all the Sukshma takes place in this manner, then Stula Prithvi is formed. And this is how the grossification, the compounding process happens. So, every Stula Bhuta, gross element, therefore, it is a mixture of all the 5 elements. Every Stula Bhuta, it is a mixture of all the Panchabhuta. As Sukshma Bhuta, each element will have only itself. Sukshma Akasha means it has only Akasha. There is no contribution from other elements. And Similarly, Akasha, Vayu, Agni, Apaha, Prithvi. And therefore, as Sukshma, they are called Tanmatra. As Sukshma Bhuta, they are called Tanmatra. Tattvabodha. Tanmatra is that, means that alone. It has only that element. But now, once they become Stula, they are no more Tanmatra because it has recontribution from the other elements. Therefore, they are no more Tanmatra. When it becomes gross, Stula, they will have the other four elements. And this is called Panchikaranam. Now you can go back and see the meaning of the sentence. This is what is described in the prose form. You can see. Panchikaranam katam iti chet. If we ask what is Panchikaranam, then it is described. This is how it is done. How etesham panchamahabhutanam tamasamsha स्वरूपम एकम एकम भूतम द्विधा विभज्य एतेषां पंचमहाभूतानां. Of these five great elements, the tamasamsha swarupam, that is the tamasa, the tamo amsha of the panchamahabhuta, ekam ekam bhutam dvidha vibhajya. Each of them is divided into two parts. As we have seen, Akasha divided into two parts, Vayu, two parts. So each of them divided into two parts. Then, Ekam Ekam Ardham Pratak Tushnim Yavastabhya. One half of that is kept as it is. That is 50% of Akasha. For example, 150%, one half is kept as it. Aparam Aparam Ardham Chaturdha Vipachya. The other half, other 50%, Chaturdha Vibhajya is divided into four parts. Chaturdha Vibhajya. Having divided into four parts, then Swardham Bhinneshu Ardheshu. Swardham. In the other half of each element that was kept aside, in the other half of each element that was kept aside, Swabhaga Chatushtaya Sanyojanam Karyam. We have to combine the 1/4 of each half of each half. We have to combine the 1/4 of each half. So Akasha is divided into two. One half is kept as it is, and the other half is divided into four. And those four parts are combined with the other four elements. Each element, therefore, getting one part of Akasha. This is how it is done with Vayu, Agni, Apaha, Prithvi. And Tushnim means Tushnim Vyavastapya, without doing anything. That is Tushnim, without changing. Vyavastapya means having placed. Tushnim Vyavastapya, one half, that is 50% of each element is kept as it is, and the other 50% elements is contributed to the other elements, each of the other elements. And this process is called Panchikarana. In simple words, in schools and all, we have done this Panchikarana. During our lunchtime, we have done this. What you do is, during lunchtime, you share your food with each of the other four of your friends. So, each will take a portion, 1/8 of your food, and you will have half of your food, and 1/4 will be taken by the other four, and they also will contribute 1/4 of their food. So, finally, what you will have? You will have Panchikarana. So, this division and combination of elements is called Panchikaranam, and by this process of Panchikaranam, Stula Bhutas are born. Now, you can ask, how can you name the gross element as Akasha, Vayu, Agni, Apaha, Prithvi? When each element Stula Bhuta as the fractional contribution of other elements. The gross element Akasha, that Stula Bhuta Akasha or Vayu, whatever that element you perceive, how can you call it as an Akasha Agni? Because it has the contribution of other elements. So how can you name it as Akasha Agni, Apaka Prithvi? Because if you take Akasha, it has the maximum or predominance of Akasha. Akasha has 50% Akasha. Vayu has 50% Vayu. Agni has 50% Agni. Apaga has 50% Apa. Prithvi has 50% Prithvi. Since there is maximum contribution from its own, therefore it is named respectively Akasha, Vayu, Agni, Apaha, Prithvi, iti. Akasha, Stula Akasha, it doesn't mean only Stula Akasha. Only Akasha is present. It has the contribution of other element, and since Akasha is predominant in Akasha, therefore it is given the name Akasha. Similarly for Vayu, Agni, Apaha, and Prithvi, all the Stula Bhutas have got the name because of the predominance of that particular. And these Stula Bhutas, they are Jadam. They are inert in nature. This physical body, Stula Shariram, is made of this Pancha Stula Bhutani. Now, these 5 Stula Bhutas are formed or born. From this 5 Stula Bhuta, physical body, that is Stula Shariram, is born. Because it is made of Stula Bhutas, it is called Stula Shariram. And this Stula Shariram, it occupies space, Akasha, and there is Vayu in the body, oxygen is there, and Agni is also is there in the body in the form of temperature. And what about water? 75% of our body is nothing but water. In fact, water gives shape to the body. And all the materials, all the minerals, like calcium, carbon, everything is there in the body. They are Prithvi. So all the 5 elements, grossified 5 elements, make the body, and therefore body is called Stula Shariram. And since Stula Bhutas are inert, body will be inert. Body is Jadam. If body is also Jadam, then what is the difference between Stula Shariram and any Jada Vastu? Any Jada Vastu, what you perceive? Stula Shariram is also Jadam, and any Jada Vastu, what you see in the Jagat, that is also Jadam. What is the difference between the two? Remember, Stula Shariram is also Jadam only when there is no Sukshma Shariram. The absence of Sukshma Shariram alone makes the Stula Shariram Jadam. If Sukshma Shariram is present, then it is not a Jada Vastu, it becomes a Chaitanya Vastu. For example, a table is inert, Jadam. A mobile is inert. My bracelet is inert. They are all Jadam. It is made of Stula Bhuta. It is Stula Bhautikam. Therefore, it doesn't have Sukshma Shariram, and so it is Jadam. And any Jada Vastu can become an object of worship for us. How? When you can invoke the Devata and the Jada Vastu, then it becomes an object of worship, and therefore we can offer puja. That invocation of Ishvara in the Jada Vastu is called Avaganam. We have to say Avahayami. In our puja, we say Asmin Aridra Bimbe Mahaganapatim Avahayami. I invoke Mahaganapati on this small amount of turmeric powder. Turmeric powder is Jadam. On that we invoke Mahaganapatim Avahayami. You invoke Ishvara in the turmeric powder. In fact, in many of our daily activities, we invoke Ishvara, or we are supposed to invoke Ishvara. That is our lifestyle, Vedic lifestyle. For example, before bathing, before Snanam, we repeat the names of all the holy rivers. Punya Nadi, Gange Yamune Chaiva, Godavari Saraswati, Narmade Sindhu Kaveri, Jalesmin Sannidim Kuru. We say that. That is in the small cup of water, mug of water, we invoke all the rivers. All the rivers are sacred and they are all Ishvara. Whether the rivers are in India or anywhere else, they are all Ishvara and you can invoke Ishvara in that, Jadavastu. River as such it is Jada, but they become an object of worship when you invoke Ishvara in that. So the very tap water with what you take bath in your bathroom, that becomes sacred just by repeating the names and creating a bhavana. So you can convert the water to holy water by bhavana. It is possible because Ishvara is everywhere. If there is no bhavana, even Ganga water will remain just water. So you will not have the attitude of looking upon the water with reverence. And if we can introduce Sukshma Shariram in the idol, in the stone, in the temple, then it becomes an object of worship. That is why in the temple, in the consecration of the temple, the prana pratishtha is done. Prana is invoking the prana in that jadavastu. Stone, a stone or an idol is nothing but a jada. It is, as long as it is not invoked, it is not an object of worship. It is just an idol. But once prana pratishtha is done, prana pratishtha is you invoke the devata in that murti, then it becomes an object of worship. Yogita, it gets the certain yogita for worship. How prana, that's called prana pratishtha. The process is called prana pratishtha. The word prana itself, we know that it belongs to Sukshma Shariram. It means what? You invoke by bhavana the Sukshma Shariram in that murti by chanting some mantra, and you give life to that murti. There are mantras that they chant before they do the avagana. They say, let the eyes be there, let your ears be there, that all the indriyas of devata be here, let the mind also be here, let the buddhi be here. So every anga of the devata is visualized in the idol, and by mantra they invoke the prana. And afterwards, it is not just an idol, it is a murti, a living murti. So it becomes fit to be offered namaskar. So therefore, it becomes a living being. It is not just looked upon as a statue. It's all bhavana. That's because that bhavana is there. Therefore, that vigraha is now we adorn with various dress and ornaments. We offer naivedyam 3 times in a day, and on the night also we put the vigraham to sleep by singing a lullaby. Again, in the morning it is awakened. So we must understand this: the spirit behind the whole thing. This is the way we look upon everything as Ishvara, because nothing is away from Ishvara. That is all we have to understand. Therefore, the presence or the absence of Sukshma Shariram, that makes a difference between a Chaitanya Vastu and the Jada Vastu. Really speaking, there is nothing called Jadam. There is nothing called inert. There is really no division like sentient and insentient. It's all one. It's all one Chaitanya. Nothing is away from Chaitanya. If that is so, then how can there be Jadavastu? And that is the vision we need, and that is Vedanta. The presence of Sukshma Shariram, it accounts for Chaitanyatvam, and the absence of Sukshma Shariram, it accounts for Jadatvam. Understand, it is only the presence of Sukshma Shariram or the absence of Sukshma Shariram. It is not the presence of consciousness or the absence of consciousness. It is not the presence of Ishvara or the absence of Ishvara. Because Ishvara is everywhere. So we cannot say the absence of Ishvara. Then how do we account for the Jadavastu? How do we account for the Jadavastu in the Jagat when everything is consciousness, when everything is Chaitanya? we make this division of Jada and Chaitanya because the five Stula Bhuta, the Pancha Stula Bhutas, they are born of the Tamo Amsha of Akasha, Vayu, Agni, Apaha, Prithvi. So once this Panchikaranam is done, then these Stula Bhutas are available, and from this Stula Bhuta, the whole Jagat with all the possibilities, they come into existence. Since these Stula Bhutas are born from the Tamo Amsha of Pancha Mahabhuta, we make this division of Jada and Chaitanya. It's only a viewpoint. Really speaking, everything is Chaitanya, everything is Ishvara. So, we have to account for the Stula Bhuta, the Jada Vastu, which is born of the Stula Bhuta. Therefore, we attribute that to the Tamo Amsha of the Pancha Mahabhuta. And that is how we make the division between the Jada Vastu and Chaitanya Vastu. Really speaking, everything is Chaitanya, everything is Ishvara, and that is the vision of the Vedanta. So once now this Panchikaranam is done, now the gross elements are available, and from the gross elements, the whole Jagat, the Stula Prapancham, comes to existence. From the five gross elements, Stula Shariram is born, and Stula Shariram is Vyashti, and that similarly Stula Prapancham is also is born. So now after Panchikaranam, five Stula Bhutas are formed, and therefore what will be the next topic? The next one is Etebhyaha Panchikrita Pancha Mahabhutebhyaha Stula Shariram Bhavati. That is, once these Stula Bhutas are formed, from the Stula Bhuta, Stula Shariram is born. From the five great grossified elements, Stula Shariram is born. Not only Stula Shariram, you have to supply Stula Prapancham is also created. So, whenever Yashti is mentioned, we have to understand the Samashti also. Because Yashti is not separate from the Samashti. Individual is not from the total. And that is what is going to be told in the next sentence. You can repeat. Evam Pinda Brahmandayoho Aikyam Sambhutam.
Evam Pinda Brahmanda Yo Aikyam Sambhutam.
Evam Pinda Brahmandayoho Aikyam Sambhutam. Evam Pinda
Brahmandayoho Aikyam Sambhutam.
It is Aikyam.
Aikyam Sambhutam.
Yeah. There is oneness. Aikyam is oneness. There is oneness between the individual and the Jagat in terms of Upadana. This Jagat is nothing but this five elemental model, Pancha Bhautikani. Our physical body is also made of these five elements, Pancha Bhautikani. The individual Sharira, Stula Shariram, is called Pindam, and the total cosmos, the universe, Jagat, is called Anda or Brahmanda. Pinda and Anda, they have certain identity being made of the same elements. At the subtle level also it is same. At the Sukshma level also it is the same. The external subtle world, that is, the Sukshma Prapancha, is made of the five Sukshma Bhuta, and Sukshma Sharira is also made of the five Sukshma Bhuta. So there is identity, essential identity between the individual and the total at the Sukshma level. Similarly, there is identity between the individual body and the physical universe at the Stula level. This is at all the levels, Stula, Sukshma and Karana. And all knowledge is, we know it is Upadana Karanam, which is Maya, and it is not born, it is always there. That is the order, that order is always there. It is the order that pervades the created Sukshma Shariram and the subtle sense organs. So, when the Sukshma is not manifest, it is unmanifest, it is called Pralayam. When it is manifest, that is called creation. When it comes to Sukshma Shariram also, Sukshma Shariram is also really not born. It is manifest and unmanifest. Therefore, Sukshma Shariram is also Anadi only. So the creation, the Srishti is nothing but the manifestation. So, therefore, unless all Yashti is created, there cannot be any Samashti. And unless Samashti is, then no creation is possible. So, therefore, we have to say all the Yashti and Samashti, they are simultaneous. They are Yashti and Samashti, they are simultaneous. That is why when Sukshma Shariram is formed, we understand the Sukshma Prapancha also, the creation of Sukshma Prapancha. Similarly, when Stula Sharira, when we understand the birth of Stula Shariram, the same way we can understand the birth of Stula Prapancha. So what is created now is Stula Shariram and this Stula Prapancha. There is an essential identity, the aikyam between this at all the levels, at Stula, Sukshma and Karana. And we have seen the Sukshma, at the Sukshma level also it is made of 5 elements, at the Vesti level, at the Samashti level also it is made of the 5 elements. And when we look upon the Jagat as made of the 5 elements, we cannot keep our body, our Shariyam away from the world. We have to include our physical body also in the 5 elements, in the Brahmanda alone. It cannot be away from the Brahmanda. The elements and the elementals, that is Bhutani and Bhautikani, they constitute the individual and the total, the Pinda and Brahmanda. And there is Aikyam, there is oneness between the two. The individual is not independent of the total. In fact, the oneness is already established when we said Brahma is the Karana. Brahma is the Karana. Maya Sagita Brahmanaha, all the 5 elements are born. So, the Aikyam is already established when we say Brahma is the Karana. And already we have seen that these elements are not separate from the Brahma. When we discuss the Sukshma Bhuta Srishti, we have seen that the elements are not separate from Brahma. And therefore the Stula Shariram is not separate from Brahma. Also is not separate from Brahma. And all of them are born from Maya Sagita Brahma. And Maya is the Upadana Karanam, and Maya itself is Vidya. Vidya means it is not separate from Brahma. So anything born out of Maya Upadanam is also Nitya and not separate from Brahma. Therefore, what is here is only Brahma. And that is the Mahavakyam, is the great equation. Tattvamasi is a Mahavakyam, for example. The Tattvamasi, it is all based upon this understanding. The word, the Tvam, it is not the mere physical body. It is not even the subtle body. It is Pratyagatma. It is Chaitanya. And when we recognize as Chaitanya as Satyam, then the Stula Shariram and Sukshma Shariram, they are all the Nitya. Similarly, in the Tatpadam also, Tattvam Asi, in the Tatpadam, when you see that Samashti Stula Shariram and Samashti Sukshma Shariram along with Maya are not separate from Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma, the Satchidananda Atma, and Maya with Samashti Stula Shariram and Samashti Sukshma Shariram, they are all Nitya. Thus, the we end up in that same Sachit Ananda in all the situations. One is Sachit Ananda, another is Satyam Jnanam Anandam Brahma. Right. Therefore, the Aikyam you can see all the way from the creation onwards. That is why when we said Maya Sagita Brahmanaha Akasha Sambhutaha, we said Maya is Mithya, and from Brahma only everything is born, and from the Brahma that five elements have come, Maya Sagita Brahmanaha, and the five elements Sukshma is formed. When Sukshma is formed, Sukshma at the Veshti level and Sukshma at the Samashti level, so there also Aikyam is there, and from Sukshma to when Stula is born, there also the Aikyam is there. Therefore, Pinda Brahmanda Yoho, Aikyam Sambhutam. There is evident essential identity between the Pinda and the Brahmanda. Pinda is individual and Brahmanda is the total. At the total level, we say Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. At the individual, we say this Satchit Ananda Atma. Atma is not different from Brahma. Brahma we say at the total and Atma at the individual. Pratyeka Atma iti. So, really speaking, it is only Atma or Brahma. Sachit Ananda Atma. And therefore, now, how many Sachidananda Atmas are there? Everything being Atma, Brahma, there cannot be many. There is only one Sachidananda Atma and there are no divisions in that. So, that is oneness. And this oneness is revealed by the Mahavakyam like Tatvam Asi, Aham Brahmasmi. There are so many Mahavakyams. And generally they say 4 Mahavakyams taken from the 4 Upanishads. And this Mahavakyam will be the topic of discussion, but we will see the next class. Understand the Tattvaryam of the Shastram is only in establishing the Mahavakyam. There is no Tattvaryam in the model of creation. It's a model. It's a model presented, and the model presented here is Panchikaranam, that 5 elemental classification model. By the model, what we are trying to understand is that Veshti is not separate from the Samashti, Pinda and Brahmanda. There is no difference. There is essential identity, oneness between the two. That is the Tattvaryam, and that is revealed in the form of a great equation called Mahavakyam. That will be the topic of discussion that we will see in the next class. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Hari Om. Okay, if you have any doubts, you can ask.
Are the Tanmatras also Jadam?
Yes. We are, yes, Tanmatras also Jadam only.
So does that mean that the Sukshma Shariram also is Jadam?
Sukshma Shariram is, it is not Jadam. Sukshma Shariram is, it is responsible for the reflection of Chaitanyam in that Stula Shariram, the Stula. Without Sukshma, if it is only Stula, then it is Jadam. Because, as we have seen that Sukshma, it has Anaha Buddhi Chittaha, that Antakaranam is there. Chaitanyam is reflected in the Antakaranam. The consciousness is reflected in the Antakaranam. Antakaranam is mind. So when mind is there, then you cannot call it as a Jadam. Mind is Jadam. Mind is Jadam. Understand? Mind is Jadam. In the mind, Chaitanyam is reflected. Therefore, it becomes.
Okay, you were talking about reflection, so that reminds me of the bimbam and pratibimbam. So bimbam is the real satyam, pratibimbam is the reflection, right? So if Chaitanyam is reflected in the Antakaranam, it is reflected there. Antakaranam is Jadam.
Antakaranam is Jadam. Yeah, Antakaranam is Jadam. See.
So that means everything, Manasita and Ahankaram and all that is Jadam.
Jadam, mind is Jadam. Yes, mind really speaking is Jadam. It's like any Jada Vastu what you see in the Jagat.
So we can conclude that. Then we can conclude that even the Sukshma Shariram is Jadam.
Okay, from that viewpoint, you can say Sukshma Shariram is also.
Okay.
So Jadam, but when Antakaranam is there, and mind is there, the Chaitanyam will be there. Chaitanyam will be reflected in the mind.
Right. But Chaitanyam is the only one that is real. But Chaitanyam is the only one that is real. So that is why they say there is only one. And that is the Chaitanyam. Right?
Yeah, correct.
So we need to ignore even the Sukshma Shariram.
Exactly. Sukshma Shariram also. That is why we are going to see that later that Jivan Mukta or Videha Mukta will come. The Sukshma Shariram also, it